This video might be deemed controversial because of some things that I'm going to say, but really, I think if you remove emotion, okay, and you really listen to what I'm saying here, I'm not even sure there's any room for disagreement. Okay, so really, I'm making this video to speak about, as you can see by the title, the immorality of having children in the hood. Okay, and this is look, I live in America. All right. So I can't speak to this is not about third world countries. I'm talking about strictly America. Because although I live in New York City, there are some not universal, there are some countrywide uh laws, federal laws, um, where this advice or this analysis can be applied in all 50 states. But my premise here. So I want to start this video off by saying that I don't think it is moral to bring children into this world if you live in the hood. Okay? I don't think that's a moral thing to do. Um, I'm obviously a black man, as you can see. And I live in an area which you can deem the hood. And immediately the rebuttal to this is, so are you saying that your mother is immoral for bringing you into this world, into the hood? You can't say that bringing a child into this world, if you live in the hood, is immoral, but then exclude your own mom. And to that, I would say, and hmm, I do think in a way it was an immoral decision. And that's rough for me. As you saw, I'm struggling to even speak about this because, especially living in the black community, it is very hard for us to speak in a way that can paint our mothers in a awful light. Like we always talk about, there's this new belief now that black men are patriarchal and this and that. But I would actually say the opposite, that the black community is actually a matriarchal community. And it's been that way for some time now. And it's very hard for us to speak in any way that we feel can be seen as a shot or a critique of our mothers. And I love my mom. I love her. She's done a lot for me, which I will get to later on in this video. But sticking to my original point, I do think in some ways, bringing me into this world, living under such conditions, was an immoral decision. Okay? And here's why I say that. Because the conversation around pregnancy in this country is usually either we're speaking about abortions, which leads to a woman's right to choose, versus the life of the child inside the womb. And one thing that I don't think anybody on either side, whether they be Republican or Democrat, they speak about is, well, what about the child? Because see, the Democrats, they focus on it's a woman's body. So what she wants to do is all that matters. And I think that's some bullshit. Because let's say she wants to bring the child into this world, where, like I said, she lives in the hood. She doesn't have any family to help her watch her children. So the child's gonna be born in poverty. Born in poverty, most of the time the father's not around. When the father's not around, and then the child is also born in poverty, let me put it on vibrate. The child is around, but there's no father around, and they live in poverty. Guess what? Especially if the child is a male child, a boy, you have made his life extremely difficult. You have. You've put himself in this ditch that he now has to dig himself out of, because poor communities mean, guess what? Poor education. Poor education usually means that the surrounding area has a limited number of job opportunities. So you're putting your son in this position where he has to climb out of a ditch he did not dig for himself. And is that not a little cruel? Really? Because no one speaks about that. And that's the Democrat side. On the Republican side, their position is that pro-life, that the life that babies are still people. And just because the woman is the vehicle that babies travel in until they get to their destination, which is the world in that analogy, doesn't mean that the driver can just decide to reach in the back of the car and blow the passenger's brains out. Right? In that car analogy. And to a certain extent, I kind of agree with that statement. But then where Republicans lose me is then they don't want to provide any type of social safety net for these people, these babies born in these awful predicaments. And how come that's not talked about? So we'll talk about whether or not the government should get involved with the woman's body, or whether or not the woman should get involved with killing a child. If you view what goes on in her stomach before she gives birth as life or not, we'll talk about all of this stuff. We'll argue, or point fingers back and left and right. No one speaks about the ethics of bringing a child into this world in America, where you have a bunch of options to not get pregnant, on whether or not that's immoral. And it needs to happen, I think. And I think it starts with people like myself being honest enough to speak about some frustrations. I've had some frustrations growing up, okay? Some things I had to witness, I had to see because of the area I grew up in. And then I'm put into this ditch where I'm forced to climb out of, okay? And my mother is different from most of you watching this video, because my mom, although grew up in this area, we went on vacations every summer. So I was around white people at least once a year, wealthy white people. My mom, she said she wanted us to see good things, nice things. My parents stayed together, which is another difference between me and a lot of black boys in my situation. I always had my father around, okay? Always. I always had the basic necessities and then some. And then I was able to travel, to see other things, to step outside of this area that I grew up in. So I was introduced to certain standards of living and certain things and good things and nice things. And my parents wanted me to see that these things are possible to achieve if I worked hard enough. But then sometimes I think about, some negative experiences that I had. I've been jumped before. Back when I was in elementary school, this Crip dude walked by, basically threatening that he would kill me and my friend Angel, who was in the Crip dude's defense, taunting the Crip a little bit, basically saying that he would, kill both of us, but he's on probation. Like, he said that we were kids, and a grown man said that to us, because it's this jungle environment when you live in the hood. It really is. It's not normal. And a lot of black people who grow up in these conditions, we forget that, oh shit, this is not a normal environment for me to grow up in. Like, this ain't normal. I know normal is relative, because you can say, well, compared to, people in these third world countries, living in the hood is wonderful. And I get that. Problems are still relative though. And in America, where you have choices, where you have condoms, where you have birth control, you can make an argument that nobody should be out here bringing children into this world, and you can't afford them. Condoms are not that expensive. Outside of you being completely broke, meaning you're homeless on the street, and we do have a reasonable population that is homeless. So if you are homeless on the street, I can make the argument, how in God's name are you having sex? Although there are homeless women as well. But yeah, outside of those people, which are extreme cases, the rest of us, yeah, it might be a little bit messed up to bring a child into this world in awful conditions just because you want to, ladies. And I will always put more of the burden on the woman. And here's why. Men and women can both use condoms, but that's where it stops. Women use birth control. Women have access to abortions. Women have the option of taking a Plan B pill. So if one person has a lot more options than the other, there's no way I'm going to split the responsibility of bringing a child into this world in awful conditions on both the man and the woman equally. That's just nonsense to me. And a lot of women, when they are pregnant, they bring children into this world knowing they can't take care of the child. Or at the very least, they know, you know what? It's going to be a rough experience. It is. And we just need to start asking this question on, is that a moral thing to do? I think we need to expand the conversations around pregnancy and childbearing past whether abortion should be legal or not, or whether or not the government should be creating a social safety net. How about starting from the fact that, hey, condoms don't cost that much. Most people that get pregnant, they didn't get pregnant because they were too poor to afford a condom, or birth control. It's because they were negligent or lazy, quite frankly. And should we not be discussing that perhaps you might not that be as good of a person because we love to claim how good we're great parents, we're phenomenal parents. I'm a great mom. Well, I mean, are you? And I think that's not the worst thing in the world for me to ask. So I would love to hear your thoughts on, am I wrong? Am I overstepping? Does my male privilege keep me from having a right to discuss children, even though any child in this world both has a mom and a father? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? I'd love to hear. I think this conversation needs to happen, and I think it'll be very productive if it does happen. So, till next time, deuces.